Zinnia grew up without much money, but she was happy. Her home was full of love from her parents and for her pets. That's why it hurt the most when her parents got into an accident, killing them and their eldest cat, Lena. She was not only heartbroken, but developed survivor's guilt. In the aftermath, newly teenage Zinnia was left with no one but her kitten, Salmon. Her parents' house had been bulldozed and the foster care system reached out. But when Zinnia found out that Salmon, her only family, would be separated from her if she went to foster care, she ran. When she came back, she decided to build her new home on the foundations of where her old home used to be. Her parents taught her their whole lives to care for animals, so she opened a clinic. Sure, it was just an examining table outside, but she made it work. She started high school and immediately became friends with a group of orphans who all lived in a hostel down the road. In that group included Archie, a sweet, bubbly guy who became quite attached to Salmon, Robin, a slightly rude but pretty loner girl, and Theo, a goofy guy who immediately fell for Zinnia, who also happened to be a kleptomaniac. Theo started off strong, as he fell head over heels for Zinnia. She couldn't even begin to understand why, much less return to his feelings. She knew he was sweet, funny, handsome, but she didn't feel anything for him. Eventually, he kissed her, they became official partners. She was always too scared to reject him, because she never was very good at speaking her mind. He loves her, he loved her, so he deserved that love back. Zinnia's clinic continued to grow. She adopted more stray animals and built up a clinic and a home. For a while, even when dating Theo, Zinnia started to crush on her friend Robin. Of course, she had never felt a crush before, so she barely even knew that that's what it was and completely ignored it. Her teenage years were rough, and she barely had a roof over her head, developed an eating disorder, was completely confused about who she was, and considered herself incapable of love. She wasn't a good student, skipping class half the time and missing almost all of her exams. But school really was the least of her worries. Zinnia never understood herself, not in the way that she would have liked to. She thought she was broken and incapable of love. After all, if she couldn't romantically love Theo, who would do anything for her, would she ever find anybody? So when senior prom came around, when Theo wanted to take things to the next step, Zinnia didn't object. She didn't want to hurt him, and she was so grateful that someone could love her, she didn't want to lose that. And it's not like she didn't love Theo, she just didn't love him like that. But she carried on, and they messed around a bit. Unfortunately for Zinnia, luck was not on their side this time, and she found out that she was pregnant. So they became a family. Zinnia dropped out of school, Theo moved in, and they built a nursery for their baby. Zinnia hadn't expected to have a baby this early, but she wanted to make it work. Theo did too. He had been working as a petty thief for a while, but as she got farther in her pregnancy, she noticed that some things seemed to be changing. He would come home later, come home with cuts and bruises, but she knew he was just trying to provide for them, and she let it be. In her third trimester, Zinnia went on a vacation with all of her friends from the hostel and Theo. The vacation was a break from life and time to work on Zinnia's herbalism hobby, or so they thought. Drama between friends ignited, and Archie and his girlfriend split up, leaving the friend group in an awkward place. Theo disappeared off to work, and Zinnia felt more alone than ever, making it the worst time for her to go into labor. She couldn't get a hold of Theo, and she didn't want to bother her friends who were fighting, so she left for the hospital all alone. The labor was grueling, and she ended up having to have a C-section. Finally, Zinnia gave birth to a healthy baby girl who she named Miera, a name meaning light. Zinnia was furious with Theo when she returned home from him at the clinic. She had never yelled at anybody, argued with anybody in years, but she couldn't stop herself from being upset with him. The time she needed him most, he was gone at work. But regardless of the fight, Theo and Zinnia stayed together, raising their infant daughter as new young adults. Zinnia did most of the work raising Miera, as Theo was always out working. Zinnia started to worry that his job got more serious than just petty thievery that he got up to as a teenager. On one specifically stressful day, Zinnia stepped out to Granite Falls for a breath of fresh air. While studying some plays outside, she heard a noise behind her. There stood a woman staring at Zinnia. She was a little scared at first, but the woman used her with her words. Zinnia accidentally was standing right outside of her house, and she was a park ranger at the Granite Falls. Her name was Magnolia. After a while of chatting, they realized they had more in common than they would have expected, so they decided to hang out sometime. Some time passed, Zinnia continued to hang out with Magnolia and raise Miera. She introduced Magnolia to baby Miera, and they seemed to really like each other. In time, Zinnia and Theo got engaged, and their engagement party came around. They invited all their friends and hosted at their home. While everyone was enjoying the party downstairs, Zinnia was upstairs making food for Miera. Magnolia came up the stairs to keep her company, and they ended up chatting. Magnolia noticed her stress and noticed that Theo wasn't really doing his job as a parent. Zinnia admitted that it was true, but excused him because it was necessary for his work. They had a heart-to-heart, and Zinnia confessed her feelings, or lack thereof, towards Theo. Magnolia gently suggests that maybe she didn't have feelings for men at all. Zinnia was shaken by Magnolia's words, but grateful for them. She gave her a hug and continued with the party. The night after the party, Zinnia had a dream. She never had a dream like it. A romantic dream. About Magnolia. Something clicked in Zinnia's mind, something she had always been trying to push down, just to avoid. She did not love Theo, and she was possibly just a little bit super gay. The wedding came along quickly, and Zinnia didn't know what to do. Was she really ready to break up their perfect little family? Well, that was an overstatement. Theo was a criminal workaholic, Miera was a little oblivious toddler, and Zinnia was having an identity crisis. As Zinnia walked down the aisle, she made her decision. She had never made any moves for herself. She had never done anything because she was always too afraid, and it was almost too late. So with that, Zinnia confessed that she couldn't marry Theo at the altar, and she ran. She didn't leave him at the altar for anyone, not for Magnolia, not for Theo's sake, but for herself. She escaped to a campground in Granite Falls. Her friends blew up her phone, but she didn't have the courage to face them. Instead, she stayed in the forest alone. Eventually, Zinnia wanted to see somebody again. She called Archie, who was watching Miera, and headed out towards Magnolia's home. She confided in her, and Magnolia comforted her, but also convinced her to face Theo. Things didn't exactly go as planned, however. When she invited her friends over, half of them were very angry at her, and Theo didn't show up. A schism broke between the friend group, half on Zinnia's side, half on Theo's. She also had been diagnosed with PTSD around that time, a late diagnosis from when her parents died. After she broke up with Theo, her abandonment wounds had reopened, causing her to have quite the rough time. Zinnia desperately tried to reach out to Theo, but he never replied, seemingly too heartbroken. So, Zinnia moved on. She would regularly hang out with Archie and Magnolia, and Miera grew very attached to both of them as, godparents, kind of. Ever since she had broken it up with Theo, Zinnia had been constantly researching to see if she could put a label on her identity. And finally, she put a label on who she was, a demisexual lesbian. She shared the news with Mags and Archie, and they went out to celebrate the discovery. There, Zinnia flirted for the first time with Magnolia. Though Magnolia was quite oblivious, even though the feeling was mutual. As Miera got older, she got closer to Zinnia and Magnolia. She loved her mom, Mags and Archie, so much. She had her struggles, but she felt loved, for the most part. One day, after a stressful day at work, Mags came over to talk with Zinnia. One thing led to another, and Zinnia finally confessed her feelings. They shared a first kiss, a moment Zinnia had never expected that she would have the courage to do. They became official shortly after that. Miera knew about the relationship early into it, and she was happy about it. After all, she loved Magnolia, but she did miss her dad. She knew that he and Zinnia weren't exactly ever going to be together, and she was okay with that. She just wished that he was around, because she hadn't seen him in years. After one of their dogs died, Miera broke down asking for her dad. She loved her mom, Magnolia, and all of those who supported her, but she wanted her dad. He had disappeared after the almost wedding, and hadn't spoken to her since. Zinnia had had enough of his silence. She reached out, telling him he would come over and see his kid. But first, she wanted to talk to him. Theo met her outside of a local coffee shop. It was awkward, but they talked. They caught up, Zinnia apologized for leaving me at the altar, and Theo apologized for abandoning Miera. Zinnia had one request of him before seeing his daughter. She told him if he couldn't spend time with his kid if he was still in a dangerous career, which could put her at danger. Fortunately, Theo told her that he moved on from being a criminal, and she believed him. They set up a time for him to hang out with Miera. After a while of dating, Zinnia made the first big move and proposed. She had never made any advances herself before she met Magnolia, and she wanted to propose herself. Of course, Magnolia said yes, because they really like each other. They decided to get eloped in the forest, just the two of them, with an after party for everyone to go to. Neither of them could believe their eyes when they saw each other in their wedding outfits. They were both so in love, true soulmates. Magnolia had officially adopted Miera that day as well. Magnolia and Zinnia decided that they were going to raise a second baby together, so they set up an appointment with an adoption agent, and after many hours of preparation, many days, many months even, they took him a little infant girl named Saffron. Their little family was perfect for them, their cats, their daughters, and two perfectly in love moms. For Saffron's birthday, Zinnia took her family on a trip to Granite Falls. There she had her final dates of the challenge with her wife. And that's it, folks. That's Zinnia Chrome's a little chaotic but beautiful story. Zinnia's story was one about identity crises, kittens, pretty flowers, and learning to speak one's mind, and it is coming to a close. I hope you guys enjoyed Zinnia's journey. Over the last 4 to 5 months, I've become incredibly attached to these Sims. I hope you're ready to continue this challenge with me, and thank you for watching. However, this is not the full story, and it's definitely not the end. Miera's story started long ago and has a long way to go. Zinnia's story may be over, but Miera's is just getting good. We are now 1/15 through the challenge. We have 14 more stories left to explore, and next it's Miera's time to shine. Now the final scene. It's only proper to end the story, Zinnia's story, with Zinnia herself.
your point of view. You never try and see me if it ain't about you. My eyes are tinted with roses, yeah, yeah, yeah.